tell me about that. Like, how was the dog part of the motivation of building the app?
Yeah, so my wife and I, like any other millennials, like Chanel, we decided that we wanted to adopt a pet first before we want to have kids. So I had
Okay.
just gotten married. We decided that it was a good time to have one,
Okay.
and we went through the adoption process. Now, the process was to my taste, and I could have been wrong, was a little bit too troublesome in that process, being that there's plenty of platforms online for you to find adoptable pets, which, Pet Finder or AdoptAPet.com, really great platforms, great companies out there. You go in, you type in your zip code, you see pets around you. Now, in between seeing a pet online and actually going through the process of adopting a pet is a completely different gap.
Right.
And my thought was that gap, it actually creates a lot of trouble, not just for the adopter, that at that point is such an emotionally engaging experience. You just want to bring that pet home. And it is super emotional. You want to make sure that things are getting there. You are actually ready to bring that dog home same day, sometimes in the same hour even. But the process that we have to go through, it's not really like that. When we talk about going to shelters are super fast and awesome to adopt a pet from. When we go there, usually you can get out of there within an hour, 2 hours with a pet already. But the process of finding your match takes a little bit of time, which is why people spend most of the time in the adoption process online before they actually evolve into bringing a pet home. So we wanted to fill in that gap. Yeah. We wanted to fill in that gap and make the adoption process a more comfortable experience for who is adopting as well as for who is taking care of that animal.
Isn't that amazing how complicated? Were you aware of that, Chanel? How complicated the adoption process is? I mean, it can get pretty. I mean, sometimes I joke and tell people that they have a better chance of adopting a child from Kenya than adopting a dog. I mean, it can get very, 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 very complicated. And I saw that firsthand in 2004. I'll never forget. There was a guy named Monte Servant. He's like,
it's okay. Aww.
I love it.
All right, I'm back.
Dead life.
Dead life indeed.
Girls are, we gotta have our way. We gotta have our way.
Oh, she controls me like a puppet.
Aw, she's so
And
cute.
this COVID pandemic, we are always working from home, so she's getting the habit of just wanting to say hi at me.
Yeah.
And you remember when that guy was doing an interview, I think to CNN or something like this, and his kid came into the office in the middle of the interview, but his reaction was actually to push the kid away and pretending that it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So ever since I saw that, and it went viral at the time, ever since I saw that, I'm like, if my kid ever does that, I'm going to just get in and just go for it. Just going to join the meeting.
Don't push your kid out the frame. Just go. Hey, and actually, this is the new normal. Like, just like.
It's definitely the new normal. It's going to be a lot of that. I mean, all of us working in from home, and kids are used to being at school, so they're getting restless. So, hey, it's all expected. And
my wife's work says something really interesting. They say that all we need is just to have a little bit of grace. It's going to happen.
I love that.
And we're going to smile and
a little bit of
go with it.
Right. You got to flow with it. Exactly.
Hey, Chanel.
Yes.
So, like, if your man mistress, like, walks past, I'm not going to ever do anything. I'm not going to be upset.
I mean, you see how he just switches gears and he bullies me on
no,
the show.
I'm telling Artur to say I'm giving you grace if something like that happens. If someone weird walking past,
the only person that's going to be walking past and throwing a fit over here is Bentley.
Okay,
and you guys can only see him because he taps on my feet. It's not only kids; it's the dogs too. It's like he taps on my feet, like, "Hey, let's go."
I didn't know that. I wasn't sure that Bentley was a dog, so I was imagining, like, is it a person type thing on your feet?
No, Bentley is my baby. He's my dog. He's a 2-year-old golden doodle.
Oh, that's beautiful.
She thinks he's human.
Yeah.
She has a little high chair and everything.
I do not.
Artur,
Yes.
what's that chair? I gotta see this chair that you're sitting in. That's a sexy chair.
My chair?
Yeah. Wow.
That's a gaming chair. You know, it's a nerd thing.
My birthday is on Tuesday, so if you want to send one out to 921 South Lewis, Chicago, Illinois. Do not hesitate. Do not feel shy at all.
Yeah, it's going to be on the podcast. Are you going to use it right there?
I'll use it for the podcast.
I'm going to have like a selfie of mine printed right here. So every time you move, you're going to have my face.
I want to sit in that. I want to sit in that. It
looks comfortable.
It looks super comfy. Okay.
It is.
We were talking, you discovered a real issue because when I started, I didn't even know that was a thing. And it's truly a thing. And I didn't know it was a thing until like I got involved in the pet industry 20 years ago when Monte Servan, Cook County Sheriff, dad of 3, business owner, real estate owner, super good guy. I mean, Cub Scout leader, went to go adopt. He said, I want to adopt a pit bull. I'm like, oh, cool, awesome. Like, I know, let me see you to my friend. And he called me up. Dude, where'd you send me? I'm like, what? Like, dude, they said I can't adopt a dog. I'm like, what? I'm like, dude, why? He said, like, I didn't pass, like, their, like, qualification list. I'm like, dude, you got it. Called her up.
That's so crazy.
I was like, what's up? He's like, why did you, like, deny? She's like, yeah, it was just something about him I just didn't like. I'm like, you didn't like? I'm like, you don't even get any more ideal. But some of the I love all my pet people out there that are doing adoption. Don't take this the wrong way because that's God's work for sure. If you're taking, especially people that are living with dogs and fostering other people, but sometimes people, they get attached to the animal. Because, even for me, like at any given time, I'm rotating 10, 15 dogs for the last 20 years through my home and through my business. So some dogs I love them. I get attached to them. Like I like them, but I learned a long time ago they have to go back home. They have to go somewhere because I already have. I personally have. Every dog I have is a rescue. People don't like. I haven't bought it. Someone gave me. I was given 2 French bulldogs that, made more French bulldogs, but I didn't. I have my own thing about spaying and neutering. Don't shoot me, shelter people out there. But I adopted those dogs. Right. My Doberman was given to me. My American Bull. Every dog I have is a rescue. Right, they're just fancy rescues. They're expensive dogs that people go out and get, but it's because I get attached to them. Like, you want this dog? I'm like no. So I get people are looking for the ideal home, but you created an app platform to help people navigate through that process. So just for people that might not, take the time to download the app, or someone that's not, because the app is super interesting. Can you just walk us through real briefly of how the app works for people, just so it's super fun and entertaining?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind me, I would just give one step back before getting into the app itself, which is just agreeing with you on it's God's work, right? All of our community, the work that they're doing is incredible. And it's nothing that we've done was actually to critique, but it was based on 2 assumptions. Is that, well, finding the right match matters. And the other assumption was that, but at the same time, we can find the right match without being so troublesome and sometimes hurtful. And it's natural from an anthropological perspective. It's natural that us as human beings, we will always try to overcorrect. So we came in from a context in the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, in which we had so many animals abandoned and so many animals being killed and euthanized because of lack of space and whatnot, and animal cruelty, and all of those bad things. And you have this community of incredible people that have changed that around this country, and they changed that perspective completely. Now, the heritage of that is an overcorrection. Now, it was too easy to get animals, so people were they were abandoning them. They were, just too many. And then we will overcorrect. Now we're going to make it a little bit harder for people so they understand that they have to be responsible when they're doing this. And then naturally we will find the middle ground, which is what the shelter community is expanding on, which is an open adoption. San Diego Humane Society, which is one of our partners, for instance, their application process is actually just give me your name, your address, so we know where you are, and that's it. There's no judgment on whether or not you're qualified to get a pet. And that's the direction that we as a community are walking towards. So we have anyone in the spectrum of highly complex 11-page long adoption applications to the San Diego example, which is barely any questions asked. And we will find a better system over time, and we're doing better already. So there's always something to do. Now, what the app and the platform does really is that, okay, we do need to collect some level of information to ensure that we have what we need to make that adoption a success. Why don't we use a system that will automatize steps of that process in a way that I'm not actually doing that as a staff in the shelter, and I can focus my time on helping that animal to get a walk, to get food, to get treatment, to do things that matter to the infrastructure of the shelter, rather than looking at pages in an application that is being sent over to me within a PDF inside of an email, and that I have to read that through. That's too complex. So what the system does is that we organize the whole experience in steps of the adoption process that will be natural to basically all organizations, which is I need to receive that information from the person that has the interest of adopting this pet. The system captures that info. It displays on one of the things that I'm the proudest of in our platform is really the user experience and design of the system. So it really displays very easily which animals have which people interested in adopting them. You see their inquire, you decide whether or not that's a good one. You might have to call in to schedule a meet and greets. Nowadays, virtual meet and greets, a Zoom meeting with the animal or something. Instead of you having to call in mail. In my case, in my adoption process, there were over 50 emails exchanged on agreeing on time and date and this and that. In our case, the system automatically sends them an email with the link, so they schedule the time on their own. So I click in, like pretty much like we schedule our talk to Rihanna, just click their link, and then they book the time for their adoption counseling call. The system automatically lets other adopters know that that animal is no longer available for adoption if somebody else has adopted. The system automatically let them know that now it's time to sign the contract for their adoption, which they do online on their phone, on their computer, tablets, whichever device they're using, and pay the adoption fee and donate to the organization, and can add even products that the organizations that have those shelters with the pet stores that they have in there to help attract more funding for the organization. They can add products to that adoption experience. So by the time the person comes in to pick up their dog, they already had bought a leash and a bag of food from the shelter, and helping drive more revenue to the shelter, more efficiency to the shelter.
Artur, so it's not free, right? The shelter, do they pay for the app? They buy the software?
Not really, actually. The way that we work is that they don't pay monthly fees to use the platform. They don't pay annual fees or anything like that. The only times in which we have a fee is when we are processing the adoption fee in the platform. So let's say it's a free adoption, there's no fee. Then you have a paid adoption of, I don't know, $50. Then we have a $5 fee that the adopter chooses to cover. That $5 fee covers both the credit card fee, so the shelter actually gets a full 50. So it covers the credit card fee, which is usually 2.2, 2.9%, depending on the credit card. And whatever is left is out of pets.
Oh, so very cool.
It's effectively free for shelters and rescues to use the platform, basically.
Okay, so it's almost like a software. You guys didn't make your money. You make your percentage off the adoption fee then. If there is adoption fee, but if there's no adoption fee, you guys don't charge.
That's pretty much it. It varies. The shelter is the one to define. Yeah. So we have shelters up north that will be $100, $150, $200. You have shelters in the south that is mostly free or $10 adoption fee. So really depends on the area.
So you don't. So is this only exclusive to shelters, or can someone that's just doing rescue out of their home use this platform?
They can, as long as they have they are a registered entity. So we cannot do as an individual, but we can do. Doesn't matter if we're a shelter or a rescue, as long as you are registered as an entity, then you can use the platform.
Okay, so as long as you are an actual registered company,
Incorporated company, yeah.
Okay, so it's not just, hey, I have 10 dogs in my house and they all need to find homes and I use the software. I can't. Will the software not allow them to actually? There's some place on there that won't allow them to go any further. That actually require company information.
That's correct. So we the onboarding process is customized to each one of the organizations that want to use AutoPets. So they work with our team as we set up the system for each individual one. Everyone works a little bit different, so there are customizations that we can do to the system for each one of those clients. So no one can really get into the system and just create an account as a shelter on their own when they start using it. There's a process of training and getting them ready to have that process shift in their communities.
Who created the software? Who's like the actual? Are you
the developer itself?
Yeah.
We actually have an incredible CTO that is my partner, my co-founder, Andre. Back in the day, my other co-founder, Lucas, had built the apps that we had. Nowadays, we are 25 people total, and 14 or 15 of those are in the tech team. So we have all kinds of people there building it.
That's always. I mean, that's because I have two apps. I have one on Wolfkeeper. And then I developed another social media app. So I just, that's just that tech talk. Like, who's doing your back end and front end? So that's awesome. But I mean, you were super, man, I love you, brother, because you're super modest. You're super humble for sure. Because that's a lot of work. To have an app that's up and functional and running, and the way that you are, that's super generous, because some places would say, hey, if you don't charge for the adoption fee, doesn't matter, because you're going to use our platform, you're going to pay anyway. So that's very cool that you like this. You're doing like this social giving back and fluctuating, working with the shelters.
Artur, in a way, isn't it the same that you do? Like when you're working with someone, we know that we can grow better if we are together instead of trying to take advantage of each other. And in this community, we have that impression at first, whenever we're talking about pet industry. It's such a billionaire industry, right? And we're talking about pet industry, usually, and I work, we have investors behind AutoPets. We have been through some of the most awesome tech accelerators in the planet. And working through with these guys, the first impression of the pet industry, well, that's going to be $100 billion by 2022 and whatever. In our case, it's like, well, it is a massive industry, but the customer that we work with, which is a shelter, more often than not, depend so much on public funding, personal donations, individual donations, to even do the basic work that they have to do. And we are not in here to make it more complex. We are not another dinosaur software that is coming in to say, oh, they're going to pay this much, and it's an exclusive contract, and you can, to get out of the contract, you got to pay me $10,000. For us, all we ask you is that give us a heads up 30 days before you're out so we can organize things and help us make it better. Help us understand nobody's forced to stay. You stay because it helps. If it doesn't help, then there's no point.
I love that. We just said that we're better together versus trying to take advantage. We need that so much in the world.
Because so many people are just after, they're just trying to benefit from what they can get from for themselves, and they don't really look out for other people. So that's key.
No, that's super key.
8 points.
Is that why we are in this COVID shit show nowadays?
Right. Pretty
Well,
much.
No, and you just said something I've been saying from a business stance. Is that's the only way we're going to get out of this is by working together. And you're on the cutting edge. I'm on the cutting edge. Chanel's on the cutting edge. We all recognize it's part of what brought us here on this podcast because this is the future. I mean, for us to fly out to the East Coast, I mean, I'm not doing it right now. You coming here to Chicago, you're probably not. You have children. You're not going to do it. And then to go, I don't even know. Can we even get into Brazil right now? Oh no, Brazil's on fire. We don't even want to go to Brazil.
Brazil and the U.S. are right now like playing who is the first. There's a lot of competition.
I have more COVID than you.
And funnily enough, Brazilians are not accepting Americans, and Americans are not accepting. So we're not going anywhere. Basically, I have 2 citizenships, and I can't use that to my favor right now at all.
Right, because the Brazilian president, he's kind of like Trump, saying like it's fake. He's not wearing his mask, and I think his wife has COVID now, something like that.
Yeah. He got it.
Oh, he has it.
Apparently, yeah.
Oh wow.
Apparently. He got it. I think a couple weeks ago. He is very similar to the U.S. leadership right now. He actually mirrors himself in the U.S. leadership, which means that maybe both of the good things and the bad things are going to play out very similarly. We are yet to see the good ones, but the bad ones we're seeing right now.
You're from one of my favorite Brazilian movies. I don't know. Chanel, have you seen City of Gods?
I haven't.
You haven't? Oh, you have to watch. It's one of those movies that now that I've told you about it, and if anyone that's listening, it's just one of the movies that's amazing. Like I just gave you a treat today. Watch that on the Sunday.
I'm gonna watch that today.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Kind of as real as it gets, to be honest. That movie, it's
super intense.
It's a very accurate portrayal.
The favelas, if you're familiar, I mean, for those that don't know, the favelas would be what we would call the hood or the ghetto in the United States. But I mean, people don't realize. I lived in East Africa, Kenya, and the favelas or the hood or over there, it's an area called Courier Core. They courier like mail courier and core, but they spell both with a K. So it's courier, like mail courier with a K and core with a K, and it's rough. I mean, there's no place in America that competes with this. Kenyans don't all go to this area, Courier Core. It's a rough area. So Chanel, when Chanel's watching this movie there, anyone's watching this movie, how close are those favelas like what we see? Because it's showing like, you see the beautiful part of Brazil, you see the dancing, the food, but City of God shows you like the dark part of, is that real?
To be honest, it's what we get to see more often than not internationally. It's a small portion. So the dancing and the partying and the awesomeness, it's incredible. I miss Brazil for that a lot. But the reality that we see in favelas and slums in Brazil, it's pretty rough. My mom was working at the City of God until 2 years ago. I brought her here to help me with my kids, but she was literally working in the core of the City of God, and she would call me out of the blue saying, I'm getting under the car because there's a shooting happening in the middle of the street right now. And then it's just, that kind of stuff happens really, really strongly. I remember when we were living in one that is called Dendê, I didn't even live in the core where real bad stuff is, but I lived 2 blocks away from it. When I would do schoolwork with colleagues from school, and we would walk a block or 2 from where I lived to their house, we were already passing people with full-on machine gun stuff on their hands and circling around. Now there is some sort of parallel structure that happens in those communities, right? In which you actually have a hierarchy of power, parallel power, but you have it in which I remember my sister had been followed one day home, and the gangs basically protected her because she was part of the community. So there's I don't know. I think there's so much from it that not just in Brazil, but anywhere in the world that we are so blessed in the U.S. to not see. We have that stuff, absolutely. But there is, when we look at so many African countries, Latin American countries, and we see those realities that we are not even close to seeing in the U.S., and that's a good thing.
So would it be, I know it's all relative because it's like how some people here in Chicago won't come to, like, I'm from K-Town, west side of Chicago, North Lawndale. Like, for example, Chanel, she won't come over that area. I'm seriously joking, but joking kind of shit. I'm picking on Chanel. But some people honestly won't come to this area, like, for real. Like, they won't come and they're like, it's the worst part. And it's all relative because, I mean, part of it is like I'm from there, so unfortunately we're like used to it. But it doesn't compare to what I've seen in Uganda or Kenya or Nicaragua. Like, those areas, it's a whole nother level. Would you say that, would we be cool? Would you walk through City of Gods? Like, or is it safe for you?
By choice? No, I wouldn't.
No. Okay.
I would have to plan it very carefully if I actually wanted to do. I had a company offsite in Brazil in which we brought our whole team together in December last year, so 7-8 months ago. And one of the places that I was planning for us to do one of the team activities was actually closer to the entryway of a Brazilian favela down there, and I intentionally did not want to stay. So I actually I do not go and feel safely whatsoever. It's the same as you were to compare a bad neighborhood in here and how Americans would try to avoid that neighborhood. It would be the same feeling for me there. Now, when I'm here, we were in Dorchester, Massachusetts, around Boston, which is considered dangerous and hood and whatever. And I was living in there. And for me, I was like, I'm fine. I mean, there's nothing. So the perception of risk is completely different. Because then I'm there, which most Americans would not. Even the guy that was moving in with us was like, no, we shouldn't stay there. No, it's dangerous. I'm like, why? Like, what's for me, the perception of risk is completely messed up. Because for me, it wasn't bad at all. It was actually awesome. We had a cool apartment. It was cheaper than any other neighborhood. And I'm like, I'm cool with that. But if I were to do that in Rio, I'm like, no.
Now, you lived in Hong Kong too, right? Were you in Hong Kong? Tokyo.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. That's my life dream. I want to live there too. So that's like night and day. What are some things about Tokyo that were just amazing to you? What did you love about that?
I think there's a funny story on my first week there in which I'm Brazilian, so I hug anything that moves and even things that don't move. I'm going to give them a hug and a kiss on the cheek. And I went to Japan, which is both, there's a lot of formality, and there is this clear hierarchy on how you behave with someone that is older than you, and then somebody that is older than you and is of different gender. There's a lot of cultural norms in there that for me, like, I had no idea. So I remember the first week there, one of the ladies that I was working with, and she was like over 60 or something. So there's the age difference that alone entitles her to have a deep respect for her person. And then there's the fact that she's a woman and I was a man. First thing I did was like, hi, big hug, and squeeze the hell out of her. I was like, good morning. But that was the only time I did it. And then they explained it to me, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. But culturally speaking, was this incredible organization, Toriano, that we don't see. I haven't seen much in the world, but I don't think we see that very often. In a point that, if you say that this side of the as simple as it is, the subway, busy as it gets, like busier than New York, is like a massive railroad there, with a lot of people in Tokyo. And then you would imagine that would be messy, right, with the New York subway. But you get in there, and if the left side is for people who are walking and the right side is for people who are standing, you don't see anyone distracted on their phones on the left side blocking people up. Everything is respectful to the group. Or things like the company that I worked with there, if you were getting earlier to the office, so you get to the parking lot is emptier, you actually park on the furthest spot. Because the mentality is that I have the time to walk to the office because I'm getting here early. If somebody gets here late, they need to get closer. So that mentality, which is like the other one above me, it's a evolving society in a very interesting way.
That's super cool.
And I need to pack up and move because I'm always late.
You are, that would totally benefit you. You got the first spot.
Let me get the first spot.
That's totally.
Even I do his nature, like, oh, score! Just right at the door.
How long were you in Tokyo?
A little less than a year, and then I decided to come to the U.S. for my master's.
Gotcha. And what'd you get your master's in?
Social entrepreneurship.
Boom, social. Wow. Hence, you built this app.
I wanted to do something good.
I'm giving you a virtual hug from here.
It's the first hug I've had in days. I take it.
That is so cool, man. Because that says a lot about the backbone and structure of your company. The fact that you as the founder, you're absolutely Brazilian people. I mean, you all are lovers. You all hug things. You're kissing people. You're feeding people. You're dancing. You got the crime, the favelas, but you all are very passionate.
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff, too.
No, but I'm saying, that part carries over to your software because that's a huge deal. Most people are building software. First thing your person goes into it, you're pitching people and saying, "Hey, it's going to make $1 billion, and this is how we're going to get $2 or $3 or $4 from 1 million people every year." And da da da. And here you are saying, "Hey, you know what? If you don't charge someone, we're not charging you." And that person can use. So just to reiterate, so if I'm a shelter over here in Chicago pushing out 20 dogs, per month, but we don't charge an adoption fee, you're not going to charge us. We're just using the software.
Yeah, effectively.
That's huge.
In fact, during COVID, there's a high number of shelters that are just waiving all of their adoption fees, which means most of them are going for free, if not all of them. It's fine by me, if it can be helpful. And remember, this is a cycle. Treating people right does pay off over time. And it does mean it's a sacrifice right now. It is a sacrifice because it's more expensive to run, and then we're not, covering the costs and all of things like that. But they will not be free adoptions forever. And then by the time that there is an adoption fee, there will be, I might be naive here and just hopeful, but there will be a point in which it's just fair. When they have an adoption fee, and they're like, no, let's make sure it runs through auto pets because when it was free, we were using it. Now let's make sure that they get to it. Wow,
I love that. This is a perfect Sunday podcast because you're like over there, Pastor Sousa. Treating people right pays off in the long term. And you're just dropping, you have so many one-liners you're dropping as far as being like a good human being, a great human being. And you're right. I mean, it's like now, certain people, I'm not charged. You mean, because I know they sincerely, they can't pay for it. They can't afford it. So, pay it forward, and give, and that's the only way we're going to get through this. We're only going to get through this by giving. That's for sure. And if you have the ability to do tech, if you have the ability to dog train or cook or anything, it's going to come down to that. And I think that's the positive thing out of COVID is that for the first time in world history that we are forced to come together and everyone has to do the same thing, park further away. So the person that got there later because they were getting the kids ready for school or they were taking care of a sick mom or a sick dad, that they already running late. So give them that. Just that's so simple
And
concept,
nobody
but
really
very
like
complex.
takes the time to think that through. You know, it's always a judgmental on a negative aspect on how people, you know, just just accept, you know, the things that other people are going through. It's a lot of things that, you know, people could be going through that we know nothing about. So that's like perfect. All of us could think that way.
Yeah, and
none of that is natural, right? We are not. I am very skeptical in the sense that I don't think that by nature we are inherently good. I actually don't think that it is. I think that instinctively, as an animal, our tendencies are for self protection, and that's the nature of our species, in my opinion. But being good requires a conscious choice on a daily basis. Is a conscious choice of, you know, oh, somebody gave me $2 more on the exchange here, that I should give it back. It's a decision that you have to make. It's easy to not have to decide. It's actually much easier to just suck as a person because you just don't care. But it's a conscious choice at every step of the way, and nobody's perfect at that. I mean, I make plenty of bad decisions all the time. But, you know, if at least we try as much as we can to just make one good decision a day, and we try to grow from there, I think maybe we get to a place in which we are helping each other.
and it is so powerful. You just make me want to go out and test some new technologies and just find ways to, you know, pay it forward and give. Because I try to be like that just in general, but you just made me think of some things that when I lived in Zurich, Switzerland, I remember seeing this guy walking down the street, and he stopped and picked up a cigarette butt. And I'm like, he was walking in front of me, and then he had it in his hand, and he got to a garbage can, and he put it in the garbage. You know, where people just don't pick up trash. You know, you'll see people just litter, but then secondly, people definitely don't say, "Oh, hey, here's a Starbucks cup. Let me." Or like right now, there's masks everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, no one's thinking like, "Oh, you know what? Let me pick this mask up, you know, and put it in the trash." Because one, it just looks disgusting. I mean, it looks like a used condom. Like they're like, ugh, there's a mask like laying on the sidewalk. And I've seen people. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. You see a little blue mask on the ground, you're like, ugh. Like,
you're away from it.
Right there. You know what I mean? But like, just thinking of ways to be great people and to help someone else that you don't even know paying it forward. You know, I know they did. Every now and then I randomly would do this for people, and if there's someone standing behind me and I'm seeing that they're kind of struggling, I'd go ahead and pay for their meal and say, hey, whatever they're getting, just go ahead, and then the person get them like, you know, they got a surprise like, oh wow, that guy, wow. I mean, that really just helped that person out that day. I mean, you never know what a person's situation would be.
And to really think about the fact that so much of it circles around to an extent that we cannot even fathom really of how it happens on the planet. I remember when you know better than I do, being a minority in the U.S. has its own fun stuff happening to it. And mind you, I am Latino, but if I shut up and nobody hears my accent, they don't even know. So I still have the white positive, you know, privilege in the sense that people wouldn't know that I am Latino if I'm shut up. My kids are white as hell. No, my wife is white. If I'm just quiet, I'm just gonna pass by. So I don't get stopped by randomly and things like that. However, in work environments, that always played in a different thing because of course I have to speak, and then I am Latino by definition. And there was this cool thing that happened. I was already doing AutoPass, and I was working in a day job, and I was driving Lyft to kind of get some extra on the side. And I remember driving this kid who was leaving his MBA class, and we were chatting, and then, you know, I was talking about AutoPass, talking about what I was doing, things like that. And this kid was like an ass, like thinking so superior because, well, here I am. Now he's talking about business, but he's driving Lyft and all of that. Literally 7 months later, he applied for a job that I was hiring for, and he didn't know it was me.
Wow.
And then I'm like, oh hey, buddy. How how are you? Do you remember me? And I actually hired him. But it's just, we don't know how it circles around. But it does.
Yeah.
In one way or another, we always pay for it. Positive or not.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that is so true. That's, brother, I really appreciate you on this Sunday, man. You got me pumped up, ready to go out and change the world today. With all that's happening, we need this today on us. You know, God is great. I believe in energy, and nothing happens accidentally. Which is why I want to send a huge shout out to Dana Dane, who's an amazing human being, because she literally co-produced the entire month of August, just like boom, who brought us together because she knew we needed to be.
She is a badass, awesome person, and she's one of great example of paying forward. Dana has found many ways of trying to support us and helping us, and she's never asked for anything in return. She just can't. She wants value.
No, I mean she's super duper crazy amazing. So before we end the show, can you just tell people where they can go get the? I want to ask you this question. So can a person just download the app and then use that as their like searching for dogs? Like,
yeah, actually, we stepped away from the apps and we made our platform completely compatible to any device on the browser. So if you go to adopets.org, which is ADOPETS.org, you actually can search for animals you save. You have your favorites. Whenever your favorite animals are adopted, you get a notification that animal is no longer available. You can create an account, interact, do a full application and process of adoption from your phone, any phone, without having to download an app whatsoever. Just getting on the browser, adopets.org, and that's it.
So I have to put you on the spot, like I'm putting everybody on the spot before we end this show. I told you about this mission that we're on to go into 2021 with 365 guests pre-booked by November 1st this year, right? Because we're going to use the whole month of December promoting January through December of 2021. You are the second guest of our new season, right? Yesterday we had Chris Roy. Would you be our guest on January 2nd, 2021?
Is that putting me on the spot? That's like giving a gift. Yes, I'm in. Count on me. I'll be there.
Is that a year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Woo! I love because we're already going into January 2nd, just man. Hey, brother, I love you, man. I just want to say, like, you are a beast. What you're doing God's work. And I mean this. You got me pumped up for today to go do some great good stuff. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Chanel and Nell, as always, helping us make this amazing. Mi hermano, all the way out there on the East Coast, Artur, Sousa, right? And I want to thank Concrete. I want to thank Rejoice and the whole crew in the back end, Tyrone Scott, my mama, my aunt Tamara, everybody, my son, Barakat, and Jazz. Go out and love somebody because you have to. It's the right thing to do. Toriano Sanzoni, the Wolfkeeper. Remember, there's only one alpha dog, and that's you. See y'all tomorrow. Peace and love, brother.
Love everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you, Artur.
Thank you, Chanel.
Have a good day.
Check. And for all the people out there that love us, we love you back. Thank you all. Get ready for an amazing show.